I'm Nicole Jones, and you are listening to Mediocre to Masterful. This podcast helps you master your goals, activate your plans, and manifest your purpose. I am here with Crystal Perkins, who is a Christian entrepreneur, wife, and mom developing platforms of positivity and living her purpose, which I am all about. Her online shop, her online shop, and recently opened storefront here in Atlanta, which I visited, and I just purchased a dress, so I'm ready to rock that dress. Is all about guiding goals and offering uplifting messages. And her second venture, which I'm really interested and excited to talk about in this interview, is the Faith Tribe, which is a nonprofit created to empower women to reach their full potential. Crystal is the perfect example of a faithful servant. I am thrilled to have her on today's show to discuss living your blessed life. Welcome, Crystal.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. And yes, I just recently went to your store and I was like, I'm just going to take a peek. I'm not, just going to look in there and see what's about and make sure I take some photos and share on Instagram, and walked out with an item. So,
Yay. Well, thank you so much for your support.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Today, the topic's about living your blessed life, and you are a great person to kind of discuss this, given the platforms that you have and the messaging that you promote on your social media. Can you explain your journey? Like, how did you even begin guiding goals in the Faith Tribe? Where was your start?
Well, we actually started, my first company was Faithful Chicks Boutique. And I launched that company about 5 years ago. So it was my Christian apparel company. And then from Faithful Chicks, actually before Faithful Chicks, I just began to really, there was a shift that took place in my life. I went through a season of losses, a season of setbacks and hardships. And God just told me that I had a responsibility to share my testimony and share my faith with everybody that I encountered. And God then gave me the idea to put the vision rather, to put my testimony on T-shirts. And I really never understood that concept, but I knew that I had to get in agreement with God and do it. And I was like, there's already like T-shirt companies, like I've never thought of anything like this. So I knew that it was a God idea, because there's definitely a difference between a God idea and a good idea.
Yes.
And so I just got in agreement with God, and I began to birth it and walk it out. And then the ministry just took off. And notice I say ministry because although it was Christian apparel, I was more focused on the ministry aspect of that, as opposed to the boutique side and the clothes. Like that part never really fueled me. It was the ministry and the message behind the brand. So I began to build Faithful Chicks Boutique. From that, I began to do speaking engagements. I began to do one-on-one consults with people, because what happened was people just noticed me walking by faith and building God's way. Like that, God has always been my foundation. Faith has always been my foundation. And so people just began to get inspired by that. And then people was constantly asking me for advice and how I did it. And so I began to do consultations. I began to do speaking engagements. From that, I began to do workshops. And so I recently, about a year and a half ago, moved to Atlanta. I closed my store back home. God said, you've accomplished everything that I wanted you to do here. It's time for you to expand into bigger territory. And we got an agreement with God, and I closed my store. I had to leave my family, everything, and just move.
Wow.
And so when we moved, God had me in a stillness season. And I really didn't understand that. I'm like, okay, so you gave me all of these big visions, and then you moved me here and you tell me to be still. That doesn't make sense. But I was still, in agreement with God. And in that season, although it was tough, I had to remind myself that as a Christian entrepreneur, we have to remember that seasons of stillness are just as important or more important than seasons of manifestation and seasons of movement.
Yes.
And so I surrendered during that year and a half, this past year and a half, and I was just quiet. I wasn't making a lot of moves. I was just, seeking God and seeking his wisdom and my next thing. And so during that season of stillness, God told me that he was expanding me from Faithful Chicks Boutique to God and Goals. And I was like, wow, wow, it all makes sense now. And so I expanded to God and Goals a couple of months ago, right before opening up the storefront and the pop-up store in Perimeter Mall.
Yeah.
And now God is really taking my shift and my focus into more of the consulting, more of the conferences, more of the mentoring, just all of those ministry pieces that really fueled me from the beginning. Now he's expanded it to where we're literally planning our first God and Goals conference in less than 2 months. And so that's kind of how we started. That's where we are. And I'm super excited about it because God is really giving us the assignment to pretty much set a new standard for kingdom building and kingdom living. Because I feel like religion has taught people that bondage and debt and trial and all of those things are just a way of life, which God never promised us the life without those things.
Correct.
But I just really want to get people comfortable in, you know, knowing that when God is the forefront of your life, you really can live that abundant life that you're dreaming about. It just takes a lot of work to get to that place. So God and Goals is really about putting God at the forefront of every entity of your life and knowing that the abundant life that God wants you to live is capable of, you know, manifesting. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
And so I'm just excited about it and just really shifting the mindset of the way people think and the way they dream and the way they build and the way they, you know, view money and view success and all of those things. So that is really what God and Goals is about.
That is an amazing success story.
Thank you.
That is amazing. And I'm sure you were like missing a lot of like really good points trying to package it all in a few minutes, but you know, just that what you've just shared is really impactful, and I'm pretty sure many people can relate or feel are currently in that season
right.
of, you know, transformation or stillness, or realizing they had a good goal and it wasn't necessarily a God goal, which I thought was a really good point that you mentioned. And if could you expand on that a little bit? Because I was like, wow, I wrote that down. A good goal versus...
Yes, I can definitely expand on that. I'll just take the Christian apparel example because, you know, that was my foundation. I do a lot of consulting with people who want to start Christian apparel companies. And I feel like even with social media these days allows people to think that entrepreneurship is easy and allows people to look at how someone else is living and how someone else's life is portrayed in regards to their post, and they'll look at that person's life or look at that person's business idea or assignment and automatically think, oh, well, I need to do this because this person is winning in it. But when you're really God focused as a Christian entrepreneur, you cannot allow that to happen, because just because that idea is working for someone else doesn't necessarily mean that God gave it to you. And I think that a lot of people are in bondage in their businesses because they're chasing society's ideas and, you know, Instagram ideas and Facebook ideas when God didn't necessarily give you that. And so many people will do their own thing and then ask God to bless it. But God never gave it to you in the first place. So he's not going to bless something that he didn't tell you to do.
Correct.
And sometimes it'll be successful. You know, sometimes you will get an ideal in your head and that ideal will be successful. But is that idea your purpose and your calling?
Yes.
The God ideas are always purpose driven. The God ideas are always attached to your calling and what God has really created you to do on earth. So I just really want to push people into God ideas, because this is another thing about a good idea and a God idea. We talked about trials and tribulations and how, you know, God never promised us a life without those. But this is the thing that I believe. I believe that when you're really operating in your purpose and you're operating in your calling and you're operating in a God idea, God has a responsibility to carry you through those trials and carry you through those tribulations and help you and cover you and protect you. But when it's not a God idea, he's not obligated to do that for you. He's not obligated to push through for you. He's not obligated to provide resources and tools or abundance or anything else that you lack, because he didn't give you that.
Exactly. He'll sit back and watch you too.
He's not obligated to protect it.
Exactly. And that's exactly where I was going with that. I was going to say he'll sit back and watch you make your moves that you thought was a good idea. It's like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna let you do what you think is a good idea, and then wait for you to come back around to me later because clearly you're not listening.
Clearly, you are not doing what I told you to do. Clearly.
Exactly. Exactly. And honestly, to be honest, I feel like even for me in this podcast, season one was amazing. It was great. It gave me some perspective and new ideas. But I still feel like it was a good idea from my standpoint, and that I needed to activate a little bit more of him and the teachings and the interviews that I had on this platform. So I feel like I'm moving more in the direction that he would want me to in terms of what level of information and what type of information that I'm sharing through here. So
Right.
no, that's great. That is really great. There are a lot of people who are not operating in their true calling, and instead of living out that purpose that we talked about, they pursue more of a mediocre lifestyle. What signs or nudges did you get or that you've heard from people that you've consulted to let them know that they need to activate their purpose?
I would definitely say, like, first of all, one of my favorite scriptures is Deuteronomy 8 and 18. And it really talks about God gives you the ability to produce wealth. And that is just a reminder that he's given all of us gifts to create the life of abundance that we want to live. So if you're constantly living a life of lack and you're constantly living a life of debt and brokenness, you have to ask yourself, am I really operating in my gifts? Am I really doing what God has called and created me to do? Because if the Bible tells me that he gives me the ability to create wealth, if I'm not obtaining that wealth, then I have to go back and reevaluate my life and see, what direction am I headed? What am I doing every day? What do I need to be doing differently? How can I position myself and align myself to receive everything that God wants for me?
Yeah.
And that's why self-reflection and meditation and all of those things are so important, because a lot of people are going nowhere really fast. And it's like you're making moves and you're doing things, but are you really producing wealth? Are you really productive in what you're doing, or are you just out here really going nowhere?
Right.
And you booked, busy, and broke.
That's a new one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, no, that's
and
true.
so oftentimes we really have to respect those seasons of stillness, to where we have to sit and we have to be still, and you have to say, well, you know what, God, something is off here, and I need to surrender to you, and I need to be in prayer, and I need to fast, and I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I need to get some clarity, because I'm going nowhere really, really fast.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have, the people who are not actively using their gifts, and not operating in their purpose. And really, if you're not actually actively working on those things, you will lose those talents, those gifts, those, whatever that you're really good at, if you don't pursue what it is that you know for a fact in your heart you should be working towards.
You have a responsibility. Like, I think another thing too, people have to realize that their gifts and their purpose isn't about them. It's normally attached to the people that God has created for you to serve. Yeah. So when you are not operating in your gift, you're holding those people's breakthroughs hostage. They can't receive their breakthrough because you're not doing what God calls you to do.
Yeah. So
see, that within itself should be motivating, because I know that if I wake up like I wasn't feeling well last week, so I wasn't as driven as I normally am, and I had to take a moment, but at the end of the day, I couldn't allow myself to stay in that state, because if I go 2 or 3 weeks without really pouring into my tribe, then they're not receiving their breakthrough.
Yeah.
They're not getting what they're supposed to get from me. So you have to remind yourself that it's really not about you. It's about those people that God has assigned for you to serve.
And that's a huge perspective to think about. Like, even though you're good at a specific talent, you're good at a specific gift, you have to realize it's not just for you, it's for other people. And
Mm-hmm.
I love what you just said, where it's like you're allowing people to miss out on their breakthrough as well. Like, oh my God, that is just so pivotal and very true. Very true.
It
You,
is.
you
It's
really
very
have
true.
to hone on your talents and become masters in your own skills, in order for new opportunities to arise for you and the people that you are destined to serve. So that means if you are a singer, or if you have a knack for technology, or you're great at event planning, whatever that is, even if you have a 9 to 5 already and it's different from what you know is your true purpose, start doing things, incremental things. It doesn't have to mean you quit your job or anything, but just start doing little things that lead you closer to what you know you are destined to do and
Right.
be.
And even touching on that career aspect too, like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people don't realize how important that their purpose is, even connected to their 9 to 5 and to their career. When we speak about purpose, we don't necessarily mean that we're trying to push entrepreneurship on everybody and we're trying to make everybody be business owners.
Mm-hmm.
Your purpose is attached to your career as well. Your purpose is attached to your day-to-day interactions with people. How are you being the light? How are you sharing your gifts? Your purpose is vital to the people that you're going to connect with while you're standing in the line at Target. Like,
Mm.
it's so much deeper than just entrepreneurship, because we know that everybody was not created to be a business owner.
Mm. Yes. Yep.
Everybody wasn't created to be an entrepreneur. And I think sometimes when we're in positions like this, some people feel like, well, this is not for me because I'm not supposed to be an entrepreneur. It is for you because you still have a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You still have a purpose and a calling on your life.
Like what you hear? Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at mediocre-to-masterful.com for more tips and resources to help you reach your goals. And you can also follow us on Instagram at mediocre-to-masterful. The points that we've just shared, as far as stillness and having good goals versus God goals, are all a part of living your blessed life. Activating your purpose in life is a part of living your blessed life. Outside of what we just shared, are there any other tips that you would share with listeners on how they could begin to live their blessed life?
I would definitely say the power of obedience is real.
Mm.
So often you hear people talk about faith.
Yeah.
And faith is phenomenal. We need faith. We know that faith is the only way to please God. However, faith and obedience go hand in hand. You hear people talk about faith a lot, but you don't hear them talk about obedience a lot. And obedience really is what opens up that life of obedience, because it's like this. You can have faith in God and then operate outside of the will of God, and then nothing will manifest in your life. Mm-hmm. So it's really about walking in obedience as well, because that's just like me saying, well, I believe in God and I know God told me to go left, but I keep going right. Mm-hmm. So you can't ask him to bless you and you keep doing the complete opposite of what he's told you to do. You can't walk into doors that you created yourself. You can't walk into opportunities that were created for you, but God didn't have anything to do with it. And so I just really want people to really understand the power of obedience. And I'll just share a recent testimony, like in regards to my store at Perimeter Mall. Mm-hmm. And just being obedient as it relates to every entity. No, this is a bigger one. I'll share this one because this one will probably bless people a lot more. So when I was working, I have a bachelor's in social work and a master's in counseling. And so I was working my full-time career when God gave me a better, a deeper calling, as it relates to ministry and my business and entrepreneurship. And so I really was in a good position because I loved my job, right? So my boss was so nice, and she would allow me to work on my business while I was at work. So it's like I had the best of both worlds.
Kudos to her.
Right. And so I had the best of both worlds. And so I never forget, I was working with this guy, and he was a deacon.
Mm-hmm.
And so he and I just used to feed off of each other's energy like all the time. And he was much older than me, so he had a lot of wisdom as it related to, you know, just living a faith-filled life.
Right.
And so one day he told me, he said, one day you're going to have to choose between this job and your purpose.
Wow.
And so I was like, but I want both because I really enjoyed what I was doing. And so from a financial standpoint, it's like, why would you give up a free check? It's like, you don't do that. And so I never forget, I had lost my car prior to me birthing everything with my business. So I told myself, I said, well, if I stay on this job, I'll be able to get myself a new Tahoe because that's what I had. I had an SUV. And so my business was growing, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to get another SUV. So if I stay on this job, that can kind of be like my car note money, you know, my extra money for my vehicle. But God told me, he said, no, you're going to leave this job, and I'm going to bless you with your vehicle.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, that doesn't make sense. But so the crazy thing about my testimony is I didn't have the time to put in a 2 weeks notice. It was like one day I was literally at my job working, and God was like, it was so heavy. God said, you cannot come back here tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, so I'm crying and I'm packing up my desk because I loved my job, but I knew I had to be obedient. And so I packed up my desk. I talked to my boss about it, and she was like, oh, well, I already knew. Like, she was like, fly, eagle, fly. Like, basically, that's what she was telling me. And so I packed up my desk. I left. I'm crying. I'm emotional. But I'm remembering what God said about the SUV. And so I put on Facebook after God told me to leave my job. He said, put out on Facebook. He was like, thank the person in advance for how they're going to bless you. And I said, okay. So I typed out the status. He said, that's all I want you to say. Nothing more, nothing less. And this lady hit me in my inbox, and I recognized her name because she was one of my customers, because she ordered from me all the time, but I never met her. And so she was like, well, if you don't mind me asking, what are you talking about? So I told her, I said, you know, I lost everything. I'm birthing my purpose. I'm really walking in alignment with the will of God. God told me to leave my job, you know, XYZ, to get my SUV, blah, 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 blah. And she said, you know what? I am believing God for you. She said, I know that God is going to provide what you need. So a couple of days later, this same lady inboxed me, and she said, this is my address. Can you come by my house? And I'm like, okay. And so I went to this lady's house.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
You're going to really be at the edge of your seat. Pulled up at her house. I mean, huge house, 3-car, 4-car garage. And I'm like, where am I and why am I here?
Whoa.
I didn't even have to knock on the door. She walked outside. And when I pulled up, I got out the car. So I'm standing in her driveway. And I'm getting emotional because this was literally about like 4 years ago. And so I pulled up in her driveway, and she walked out, and she handed me keys.
Oh my God.
She said, you have what I need. She said, I've been ordering from you. I'm so inspired by you and your obedience and your faith. And she said, I'm already a millionaire. She said, I have all of these cars. I can only drive one a day.
Oh, my God.
She said, all I want you to do is pray for me in my business. She said, I just want you to cover me every single day. I just want you to pray for me. Because you have the anointing and I have the money.
Wow.
So together we have the best of both worlds.
Wow.
That's not it. So
that's not it. I was going to end the podcast right there.
I drove this lady's car. She had and the crazy thing about it was she had a Tahoe, exactly what I lost.
Are you kidding me?
Hers was like a level up than mine. Like hers was fully loaded and mine was the basic one. And so I drove this lady's vehicle for months, right? And so God just began to open up doors for me. And it was just amazing to just see the manifestation of my obedience.
Yeah.
And so God just began to open up these doors for me left and right, and my mind was just being blown every single day. And so I drove her car for a couple of months, and we stayed connected. We literally still text each other every single morning. And so we stayed connected. And so a couple of months later, she ended up contacting me again, and she said, come by my house. And so I went by her house again, and then there was another SUV like in her driveway. Now, mind you, this was like a couple of months later, so she was in a different house, bigger house, more, it was crazy. And so when I pulled up in her driveway in the Tahoe, she came outside again, and I'm like, I saw a Lexus SUV, and I'm like, why does she keep buying all these cars? Like, she's single, she has 2 dogs, she has a 5-car garage. Like, why does she need all these cars? But that's the true life that she's living. Like, she's living her abundant life.
Wow.
And so when she came outside, she said, she prayed, and she said, she was just in prayer, and she said, God told me that you're in a season where you're a lender and you're not a borrower. She said, right now you're driving my car, but this one is yours. She handed me the keys, handed me the paperwork. She literally paid cash.
Oh my God.
For me, a Lexus SUV. I still drive Lexi. I call her Lexi. I still drive Lexi to this day. Like, that is my reminder. I'll never get rid of that car. Like, that truck. Like, it's just amazing that I get up every morning and I drive a vehicle that was really a manifestation of obedience. Because remember, God said, leave your job. So if I would have stayed on that job, I would have been paying a car note every day and still walking in disobedience. But because of my obedience to give up money or give up an opportunity or give up, whatever I was trying to do in my own strength, God said, no, I'll exceed that. And so I haven't had a car note in years, but I have exactly what I needed. And so that is the power of obedience. See, people leave out that part. Well, we know we're supposed to have faith, and faith is amazing, but obedience will take you places and open up doors for you that, oh my God, like, it is just that you cannot have one without the other.
Wow.
You cannot have one. And so since that moment, it's like, I'm not afraid to give up anything as it relates to obedience. I'm not afraid. I'm closing my store this month. Like, that is my biggest source of income. But God told me, this is just a piece of the pie. This is not your overall focus anymore. Like he said, close the store, focus more on your mentoring, your conferences, your consulting. That is where I want you in this season. So I'm excited about giving up my biggest source of income because I know what follows behind that. I know what it feels like to give up something.
Yeah.
So I'm not, people are like, oh my God, it's perimeter mall. I understand on the outside looking in that is an amazing opportunity, and I'm grateful for it. But at the end of the day, y'all don't see what God is showing me. Like, God said, give that thing up. Like, you don't remember what happened to me 5 years ago. So I don't have no tears giving up anything. Like, if anything, I'm excited because if I'm willing to give up my biggest source of income again, just imagine what God is going to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not messed up about that. Like, it's like, I'm telling my team, like, pack up what y'all waiting on. Like, that, I'm like, oh, Jesus, I can only imagine what's going to come out of it. So that, if I can't say anything else, it's about obedience.
Yeah. Wow. That is what it's all about. Like, in terms of even that level, having that level of obedience and following in his word, no questions asked.
Yes, you cannot negotiate with him.
No negotiations. is what living your blessed life is all about. And if that moved me, you brought me to tears listening to this story. If that didn't move you and shake you to your core in terms of following your purpose and living your blessed life, I don't know what will, because that is just a testimony to why it's important to follow your dreams, follow your goals. It's not something that you just leave on the back burner and just forget about and think, my current environment or my current situation will not allow me to reach a certain level of success. Yes, it will. Yes, it will. You just have to follow your intuition, listen, be faithful, let go of those good goals versus God goals, and be obedient, and rock in stillness as well, because we talked about that, and just be still and listen to his word and what he's trying to tell you to do and when he's trying to tell you to move. That was beautiful, Crystal. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you
Oh
for sharing
no,
that.
thank you for I mean, I was just led to do so. It's
Yes.
just,
Yes,
oh
yes,
God.
yes. Wow. Wow. Well, I I think we've covered, how to live a blessed life. How can people be a part of the faith tribe? We've talked about God and goals. We've talked about your storefront, but I touched on it a little bit earlier. And after hearing your testimony, I'm pretty sure a lot of women are moved to stay more connected with you. And I want to make sure you
Yes.
share the faith tribe.
So the Faith Tribe is my mentorship under God and Goals. And you can join by going to godandgoals.org. And if you follow us on Instagram on or my personal Instagram, those links and everything are always in the bio. But you go to godandgoals.org and you pretty much click on mentorship from the homepage of the website. And so with the God and Goals mentorship, I actually just sent out some content to them this morning because I want to keep people motivated. So many people say, oh, well, it's Saturday. The manifestation that you're praying for is connected to those day-to-day activities and routines that you pretty much commit to. So
Yep.
although it's Saturday, I wanted to send out an email to my tribe like, look, I know it's Saturday, but what are your goals? How are you reflecting? Take a moment today, think about where you are, where you're trying to be, what can you do today to get you closer to that. So anyway, with the Faith Tribe, we have a monthly faith and prayer call that we do once to twice a month. You have access to all of my unlimited content, my webinars, my videos, my day-to-day tasks, like everything. You have access to pretty much everything that I do. As a member of the Faith Tribe as well, you get exclusive content. So there's things that I create just for my tribe that everybody does not have access to. You get discounts to all of the conferences. So with the God and Ghost conference, we're almost sold out of early bird tickets, and my Faith Tribe pretty much got first dibs on that. So they have access and discounts to everything that we do event-wise and conference-wise. And the cost for the Faith Tribe is $27 a month. It's literally almost like what? 6 4 for 4s or 5 4 for 4s a month. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's really a basic amount of money for everything that you get. You also get discounts to my one-on-one services, my one-on-one consultations. So yeah, that is what the Faith Tribe is. We are really focused on service, sisterhood, support, and
Yes.
success.
Yes.
Those are our 4 S's, and we really are raising the standard on kingdom building and kingdom living because we want to show people what it feels like to have a group of God-focused women that pretty much push and support one another, pretty much, help the next person succeed, pretty much supports that other woman's business and what she sells and what she does, and pretty much provide service to one another. So that is what the Faith Tribe is about. I'm excited. Right now, we have over 100 women in the tribe, and we're continuing to grow every day. And we're excited about all that God is doing. A lot of the Faith Tribe members in this season are really birthing their businesses. They're becoming unstoppable. They're unapologetically walking in their purpose and in their calling and in their assignments. So, yeah, that is an overview about the Faith Tribe, who we are, what we do, and what we are currently doing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of women are always looking for a group, a community of women, a tribe of women that they can connect with on, different levels, a spiritual level, but also include entrepreneurship into that mix, or, relationship discussions in that mix. So
Yes,
it
yes,
sounds like this is like the perfect platform to be able to do that, and with some positive energy from, and I'm assuming from women all over, not just in Atlanta.
yes. It is
Yeah.
not just Atlanta. Actually, majority of the women in the tribe are pretty much, they're not really Atlanta based. That's crazy. They are literally all over the world, not just in the US. We have tribe members in Canada, we have some in the UK, we have some there's another place, I can't think of it right now, but we literally have tribe members everywhere.
Wow.
So I'm just excited about all that God is doing through the tribe. And I'm praying that He just continues to increase in us. And
Oh,
we're actually
yes.
planning our, we're working on, like I said, we're working on the conference right now. But the next big thing for God and Goals is our God and Goals retreats. So I'm excited about all of that, because God is really going to show us how to restore your peace and just your mindset and just everything with the retreats. So yeah, I'm just excited about everything that God is doing.
I'm excited for you. I am super excited for you. I'm excited about what is going to birth out of, the new opportunities, from closing your store and the launch of your first conference. So I'm just really excited for you. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so,
Crystal.
so
I really, really appreciate you being on the pot on this episode today and blessing us with your testimony, because that was a beautiful story of
Amen.
just
Thank
triumph and just encouragement and reminder that, we can't do it all on our own. There is a higher power allowing us to be able to, to propel us to the next level that we envision so often. So,
right.
I really thank you. I know we talked about your different platforms, but can you share again how people can connect with you online?
Yes, you can definitely connect with us through godandgoals.org. On Instagram, we are godandgoals_. On Facebook and Instagram, you can connect with me, Crystal Perkins, and then also on Instagram, I'm at Chris, CRYS Perkins.
Great. Perfect. Well, Crystal, thank you again. I can't thank you enough for being on today. But I hope the listeners really got something out of this episode. I know you all did, because I did for sure. Like, I'm over here taking notes. I got Deuteronomy over here written down. I got Power of Obedience and all this other great notes and tips from today's episode. So thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, and you have an amazing day. I wish you continued success, and I just pray that in this season, God, just expand your territory as well. Just really burst some new things in you as it relates to just your platform and what you're doing. So this year, really, I'm just encouraging all of us, to just become unstoppable, birth those visions, go after those goals unapologetically.
Yes.
So often when you're winning, you really want to dim your light because you feel like, well, I just need to tone down a little bit. No, we're not dimming our light in this season. We are just being bold, and we're just walking into everything that God has called us to do. So I just really want to encourage people to be unstoppable and really just shift the mindset and shift the trajectory of every entity in their lives.
Yes. I received that. We all received that. Thank you so much, Crystal.
You are so welcome.